Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are. Welcome to Third Culture Convos. Here with your boys. We're thinking about what topics to talk about, and we're talking about them. Say hi, everyone. No, you know what? Let's just stare at each other lovingly.
Is that my cue? Is that our cue? What's up? What's
so
up?
confused. What's
Yeah,
going
man.
on?
Yeah. It's been a crazy week. A lot of stuff going on in the world and stuff. And let's try to make sense of it all.
Good luck with that.
So how you guys been? Talk to me.
Work is nuts, but whatever. It is what it is. And I've been trying to recover the past couple of days from a terrible trip that I just finished a couple of days ago. My sleeping pattern's all over the place. So it's like, I don't even know what day it is anymore. But apart from that, no, I haven't done much in these past couple of days, to be honest with you. I'm still recovering from the Blue Jays shit in the bed on Saturday, but whatever, that's just me. And
did they both on Friday and Saturday they lost?
Friday and Saturday. So the two-game series
in case you don't know,
they got swept.
There's this game in America. It's called baseball. It's
and it's the playoffs.
And Canada. It's a historical game. Baseball
the first round of the playoffs and the wild card round, as they call it, which basically
poor man's cricket.
No, it's rich man's cricket because there's a lot more money in baseball than cricket.
Okay, rich man's cricket.
I strongly disagree, bro. We can do this next time, but the money in cricket, I strongly disagree.
Are we talking about contracts?
I'm talking just money. I'm saying money that's bet, money that's signed.
Betting and stuff like that. Oh, that's a different ballgame altogether.
The economy, economy of cricket, I think outsizes baseball and has done so for the last 10 years or so. With
strictly from the business side standpoint, in terms of where the money, how much money comes from where and all that kind of stuff.
Well, how much money does it generate? That's the how much money does cricket generate versus how much money does baseball generate?
Well, this is the thing. There was a cricketing revolution where originally cricket was played in two forms, one 5 days and one over 8 hours in one day. And then they shortened it even further to a 3-hour TV friendly match.
Yeah.
And they started T20 and they started leagues across the world with that
format.
That format. And because of those leagues, I think the money in cricket has gone. They've in fact now introduced the 100, which is 10 overs. They're even shortening that even further to make it a 1.5 2-hour game.
Oh wow!
I think that probably would help increase the money in cricket because sustained attention over that amount of time in this day and age, right? If you a 5-day game is in the age of instant gratification, a 5-day game, you shorten it down to 3 hours, then you'll get more people interested in going
if
to
you
games.
Want to have
because I'm thinking about raising money because how much money does the game generate, right? So how much is spent on things like jerseys and merchandise and ticket sales and TV rights and all that type of stuff.
Well, the point is that they wanted to have cricket. They wanted to set up leagues for cricket, and that's the best way to do it, where you shorten the game. Whereas, and MJ, tell me. So before they started these leagues that basically make it, you make a league, so you make a season out of it, and teams play X amount of games, like North American leagues, right? So before that, I mean, where were these players playing when they weren't playing for their national teams, right? I mean, you had you always had county cricket in England, for example. So they had that league, but then outside of that, where were the Aussies playing? Where were the South Africans playing? All the West Indians,
You have domestic cricket set up, so you would be playing in your home country, but there wasn't. If you're not playing for the national team, you might half-ass play for your county or for a club. For example, here in Pakistan, a number of the big companies like banks have teams who play in the tournament structure. And so like a player will be signed to the bank as an employee just to play cricket. That was back in the day model. And
Well, that's like
with
Egypt
the
with Egypt's football league. They
yeah,
have
yeah,
bank,
yeah,
there's
yeah.
banks and there's oil companies and stuff. They have football teams in the Egyptian
And so
Premier
they
League.
hire staff to be players.
Which was the old model in England, right? Like you had
Mm.
literally the factory and the boys, when they weren't
Yeah.
working, they were playing football. Like that
Yeah.
was the point, was that, and that was the whole local team, which football has sold out on, and most
Mhm.
of sports, including cricket.
Yeah. But in terms of how much money MLB generates, I don't know, but I know they generate a lot of money between all their sponsorships, all the TV deals. But the thing is, baseball teams themselves, like as a single entity, they can generate their own amount of funds based on their local TV deals. So the Yankees and the Dodgers, for example, generate so much money from their local TV deals alone, just because they have so much clout that they can go like, so the Yes Network, for example, is the network that plays pretty much all the New York Yankee games, right? And they pay, I don't know how many millions to billions of dollars for the TV rights over a certain time period. And the Dodgers, it was actually the Dodgers, I think it was about 5 years ago, just signed the largest TV deal in the history of MLB. And the amount of money they're making off that TV deal alone is insane. Plus their ticket sales, plus paraphernalia and all that kind of stuff. The only time that they get dinged is what they call the luxury tax in baseball. If you go above it's not a salary cap, but there's a general idea of a number of what you shouldn't supersede basically, or go over basically in terms of contracts, then you have to pay some kind of tax. A team like the Dodgers, they're like, whatever, we'll pay it. How much? It's worth less than a quarter of our TV deal. Who cares? I'm going to pay it. But as a league, MLB itself, I don't know how much it makes, but because it's only in the United States for the most part, obviously it's limited compared to what, if you look at cricket in its entirety, with all of these domestic leagues that they've developed over the years, plus the different tournaments that they have, like the Ashes, for example. Yeah, I can see cricket as a business generating more, because it's a worldwide
But
enterprise
also
at
but
that
with
point.
baseball though, right? Baseball, like where's baseball really big other than in the US and Canada? Like it's
Japan
big
and
in
Korea.
Japan, it's big in Korea, it's big in the country
In the
like the
Caribbean.
Dominican and in like the Caribbean, in the Caribbean. There's a lot of right? Like there's a lot of baseball, like they love baseball down
Yeah,
there,
but
right?
it's not as much money as you still think it would be. Yeah, there's a lot of baseball in the countries like the Dominican, Cuba, Netherlands, Antilles, like those countries that they have huge, like Curacao. There's huge baseball influence down there. And then you start going further into South America a little bit, like Venezuela. It's huge in Venezuela.
Mm.
Absolutely massive in Venezuela. But then it kind of stops there.
You might be right, Rashid, where you conceded just now to me. I'm actually like, your argument worked wonders for me. When you take the brands that you mentioned, the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Cubs, you might be right. They really just, one of these teams might generate more than the entire world of cricket, actually. Like, I mean that very facetiously. I would like to see the numbers on this. I don't
Yeah,
know
me
how
too.
exactly it's.
Well, yeah, but also like if you think about recognizable brands, like maybe that's like the New York Yankees is like one of the like the NY logo is like one of the most recognizable logos like on the planet, right? Like you know,
It's definitely up there in the top
like look
five.
at your head, like right, like look what you're wearing on your head right now.
And it's
Um,
just even the valuation for like the Yankees that you mentioned specifically. I mean, they're consistently top five like sports teams
yeah,
valuation, right? They're
yeah.
always there
And I can't
regardless.
name a single private cricket team. Like there's no or like a club-based cricket team that has like, you know, broken broken the stratosphere in terms of brand. And brand is like everything, right? Like
I'm going to give you a number, MJ, and you tell me if you think in the wild world of cricket in total, all these domestic leagues and everything would break this number. In 2001, the combined revenue of all Major League Baseball teams was 9.56 billion US.
No way. No way near. They're like at no way. The IPL, no, I don't think so. They would be at most 1 billion
but
combined.
this was 2001. This was like 100 years ago.
2001? No,
This is a- yeah.
2021. Last
Oh,
year.
I thought you said 2001.
2021.
Okay, I thought you said 2001. I'm like, why are you picking stats from like 100 years ago?
No, and that's why it's also like that's why I'm conceding maybe baseball, but I do think by the way, both of these sports, the MLB and the International Cricket Body, they both work against their sports. It's really funny that we're talking about the money thing because both of them are not good case studies. Like they're good case studies for bad management or bad branding. Like neither one of those sports has ever really enhanced their market or tried to reach different markets. In the same time period, we just saw actually the Packers and the Giants play NFL in London, and we saw the NBA players in Abu Dhabi. So like NFL and basketball have done a very concerted job of trying to harbor the global community and expand their reach and get different markets. Both baseball, hockey, and cricket have always stuck to their like tradition, and they've always been very elitist and exclusive and not supportive of other companies. So for example, Ireland in 2007 in the World Cup, they beat Pakistan. And instead of getting, there are two levels. There's the test playing nations, the teams that play the 5-day games, and then there are associate nations who are not allowed to play 5-day games.
Oh, not allowed?
Ireland are not allowed.
Why not?
Mamnu, haram.
Why?
Boss, this is what I'm saying. It's such a like because you guys have historically not played cricket, we don't allow you
Because
to
you
play
haven't
test
played
cricket.
before, you can't play now.
And then when Ireland did prove that, we can play with the big boys, they still didn't allow them until there was a lot of hand rigging and the economy collapsed and they were forced into opening their club a little bit.
Yeah, well, and that seems like it does work against themselves, right? Like they would work against themselves because the more, if you want to grow as a game, if you want to grow like your revenue, if you want to grow your interest, you're going to want sort of, I mean, like you want the best, but you also want, especially with international games, right? Like you want to build up some momentum with nations, right? Because that's what get people excited. Like it doesn't matter if Ireland is like good or bad. If they're winning, then everybody, like it's cool runnings, right? Like it doesn't matter if if they naturally play this sport or if they normally play this sport, but then like you would think so.
It's no different, by the way, for baseball. They consistently have shot themselves in the foot and refused to allow themselves to grow. I mean, they were full-time enablers in the steroid use. There have been multiple cheating accusations just recently with the Houston Astros and stealing signs. And they've never done anything to promote or help the sport. They've always tried to protect its interests, which has just made it less appealing and less attractive and less inclusive because they're not honest with themselves about where they are. They denied steroid use for years. They juiced the home run derby between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire. They ignored when Barry Bonds broke the record. And now Aaron Judge just broke the home run record again. And no baseball historian knows whether we should be celebrating or not. Where does Roger Maris stand? Like they've never, I don't know, they've tried to protect the sport, but they've actually done the opposite. And that's it both for baseball and cricket.
I have a couple of points about the baseball stuff before maybe we actually go into what we're supposed to be talking about. The steroid era was the MLB was completely complicit in that because they were, so the 94 lockout happened. And then the mid 90s going on, baseball was dying, except in the traditional markets, but even still some of the traditional markets, it was dying. So what's the best thing that you can do, especially when you have two teams, when you have players playing for teams that at that time weren't doing the greatest either? Okay. So the Cubs were the Cubs, like the Cubs were the Cubs that everyone knows and loves for how many years. And the Cardinals, fine, like they're traditionally a huge, big team in baseball. But from what I remember at that time period, they weren't doing the greatest. So what do? You let these guys juice themselves up and hit a whole bunch of freaking home runs and set new records. Now, Barry Bonds is a different story because he wasn't lovable. Nobody liked Barry Bonds from day one. So the MLB's like, don't care, whatever. We don't care. And he was on roids. There's no way in hell he wasn't. You see Barry Bonds when he started with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and you see Barry Bonds when he's hitting home runs with San Francisco. There's a huge difference in this guy's freaking physique. Like, there's no way in hell. But then the same thing was with Mark McGwire. You see Mark McGwire when he was younger with Oakland, he was still a big guy, but he wasn't big and built and muscly the way he was when he was hitting jacks for St. Louis. But completely complicit. And what gets me the most about this, when they get to the Hall of Fame voting and all these in the Baseball Writers Association of America and blah blah blah, and they're like, oh well, we're not going to be voting in people like Roger Clemens and Canseco and Bonds and McGuire and like these people that we're talking about because
Pete Rose.
Yeah,
Pete
well,
Rose.
that's a different story altogether.
I know, but still.
but
Yo, guys, stop dropping
we're-
names, man. Half of the country, half of the world doesn't know what you're okay.
Yeah, maybe they do. I mean, the Americans do.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
And the Canadians. But no, but the point is that these baseball writers at the time were like writing all these sensationalist stories about all these home runs that these guys are hitting, and it's wonderful and it's great for the sport. And now they're talking about, well, maybe we shouldn't vote them in because they're on roids. Screw you. You knew what was going on the entire time. Same with the MLB. I'm sorry, it's bullshit. The next point was the whole thing with Aaron Judge. So Judge, he set the American League record, not the Major League Baseball record. It's two different records. As for what Maris would say, his son was traveling with Aaron Judge's mom on road trips to the potential places where he would tie and break the record. So the Maris family, from what we see, is fully supportive of Judge and setting this new record for the American League, which is pretty amazing. I mean, and that's not, I mean, people would say this. Aaron Judge is playing in Yankee Stadium. It has really short home run fences down left and right field. Like, this guy's huge. If no one has seen a picture of Aaron Judge, look up Aaron Judge. The guy is like, he's like 6'7". Like, I can't imagine being a pitcher and looking at the plate and seeing Aaron Judge standing there. I'm like, I'm looking at a freaking tower. And he can just flick his wrist and he'll knock it opposite field. It doesn't matter. Like, he'll hit home runs, no problem in Yankee Stadium. But the thing is that his home runs were pretty much even between home and away. Like, doesn't matter. Even most of his home runs, even if the fences in Yankee Stadium were pushed back a bit, a bunch of them would still be over the wall anyway. It doesn't really freaking matter. But no, yeah, baseball is trying to do things recently to re-garner attention, such as expanding the playoffs and making the wild card a best 2 out of 3, as opposed to used to be just a 1-game playoff, which is a good thing. I like it.
Can I ask a question, please, to like take this out of the baseball world and into like the actual world? So my question is,
shut up. Baseball is a real world.
We were talking about cricket, which is already boring enough to me. What? I can say what I want. Now, here's my thing, or where I think this conversation goes, is in general, there is a very big debate that happens on anything that's probably older than a few years, and it's the role of tradition versus modernization. So when, like, there's always a force to kind of like, there's a place for tradition, right? There's a place for tradition, and then there's a place for modernizing. And generally, all debates like kind of follow like, where do you want that line to go? So how much do you want to modernize before you lose what the actual thing is, and now you're something totally different? And who's in charge of keeping the gate of those traditions? And you fall kind of on that spectrum, and what are your KPIs when it comes to there's too much modernization, there's too much tradition, or like now tradition's holding us back, and now we got to move forward. I mean, because I notice this debate all over the place, right? Like in government and in politics and in countries and in sports, and in, like you got even in the term OG, when you want to call somebody an OG, that's a term of endearment, right? Because they're of the old school, right? They're an OG, they're part of the old school, and so there's a nod to tradition when we talk about that, hence old school, and we love that. We love that. But at the same time, the old school, I mean, it could be improved, right? Like you could do some things better. It's not like that with the new guns. So what are you saying about that?
I can understand why there are elements in whatever it is, wants to maintain tradition. But at some point you have to modernize. At some point you have to generate and grow and evolve from what you like. Golf, I mean, I know we're still on sports, but golf is one of those examples. One of the best examples I can give you from golf is that each player still has to keep its own score. But I mean, why can't they just have someone at each hole following the players and mark the score down for them as an official scorekeeper?
They don't have someone do that in like professional golf?
In golf, you are responsible for your score from the beginning.
Wait, so Tiger Woods has to hit the ball and then he has to record the
yeah. Don't you remember seeing that we're right down?
But don't they have a guy that like carry like your guy that carries the stuff for you?
Yeah,
so they got that figured out, but no, you got to write your own point.
It's still.
How about that guy? Can he write it?
You're personally responsible to carry to do your score. You're personally responsible to know the rules of the game. And if you're confused about a situation where you don't know what you can do, you call in an official who's somewhere on the course. You have to wait for them to show up, type of thing. So there's an example right there where you have, let's say in the major tournaments that are televised, you have the opportunity to have an official scorekeeper somewhere else watching a TV screen going, okay, they got a 4 on this whole type of thing. But baseball doesn't want to, golf has never considered, or they've just never considered modernizing the scorekeeping.
That's what's not done was like, because even in soccer, that was a thing, right? About bringing in like virtual referees and virtual and using technology. And there was a big push against doing those types of things because it would remove the purity of the game. And I guess this is probably one of my problems when it comes to tradition and kind of over like romanticizing an idea of the past and being like, okay, there's purity in the way we originally played it, and everything from that is a innovation. And I mean, even like having there's been two recent instances where VAR has screwed up in soccer. A Juve match where they scored a winner, but it was called off because they were claiming that I can't remember who was offside. However, for whatever reason, the Hawkeye cameras didn't catch the one defender that kept the entire team onside, but they couldn't reverse the call. And the most recent one was the Liverpool one, where Saka was people saying they didn't use the lines. They couldn't use the lines because for whatever reason, all of the Hawkeye cameras did not see Saka. So they couldn't tell where he was to draw the lines. So the first Arsenal goal this past weekend against Liverpool stood because they couldn't confirm if it was offside or not. So you have these technologies that come in, and in the end, what ended up happening? The linesman didn't put up his flag because he didn't think that Saka was offside. So it went back to the old school method of how they used to call offsides. Which in reality, when you look back on it, fine, I'm a Liverpool supporter. I'm freaking gutted about the match and all, but you know what? That could have gone out of the way. Just how close it was. I don't know if you've have seen the replay or have seen the still photo of it. To be honest, I would say 7 times out of 10 in the past, before they had VAR, that was not called offside anyway. It's going back to the traditional method of what they used to do anyway. But VAR was supposed to get rid of that kind of stuff. But whatever. I mean, here's the thing. Even this is an example where even if you do try and modernize things, it doesn't always work out. It's not 100%, but nothing is.
And that's the process, isn't it? Is that like you had some traditions, you've accepted some new ones, you've modernized, you've tweaked those, because this sports example is the perfect tradition versus modernity arena, because we're seeing it in every sport, that in every sport, there's a tradition versus modernity thing happening. That's why it's kind of like sports is very valid in this conversation, but it's also valid in culture. Or just society at large, right? And then if you like, it's easy to say we should be modern, But then this issue that you just mentioned about like the application or the implementation of that technology is itself a debate or a controversy. So like it's very easy to say we should have the internet and Facebook, but then out of that comes Facebook market scams, a whole bunch of like Pandora's boxes opened up that way. So you do need to modernize, absolutely, but you need to modernize with some knowing that they're unknown unknowns, as we would say.
I think it made me think about, but it made me think about also like, you know how with like music and people like there's a subset of people, that wasn't a subset of people, but like a lot of like it's cool to listen to like records because records sound better. So you got to have the record and you got to have the thing and you got like and that sounds and that's like even like the points of pride when it comes to tradition and sort of maybe what modernity does is kind of make it's supposed to make things easier and take less time, like take less time for it to be produced, for it to be manufactured, for it to be distributed. Even though I'm thinking about the industrial words I'm using to describe modernity versus tradition, and so I think that the words that you use that are wrapped around this particular debate, like where it sounds it sounds better on an LP. That's why you got to get it on an LP. You can't really have it on a thing, and like that's where the where the real OGs listen to and where the real old school guys listen to. But I having had grown up in a very traditional like society or society that was trying to be very traditional, and was trying to force that. It
Which
kind of
is called repressive.
yeah, because like you're growing up and you want to change it up and you want to be different, and you want to like enjoy something new or do something new, and so then it's funny that a thing that on the one hand is like a point of pride for in a lot of places, and I feel that actually a lot, like I'm going to use this word in the West. So in the West, right, like there is a lot of that, like, oh man, the OG way, like you got to do it the OG way. But then in the East, I get like I'm like, no, we want to do it the new way. Like we're done with the OG way. Like and I guess there are nuances within that, obviously, but that's definitely like something that I notice is that when I'm walking around the East, everybody wants to do things the new way. At least now, like different from when I had grown up. And now when I walk around in the West, it's like we want to go back to the old ways. Like we want to go back to the OG ways because those are cooler. And I mean, I don't know if you see that in all your countries or in all the places that you've been or the places that you visit. Is that the same? Is it the same that way? I think you got to ask yourself that question. I think you got to ask.
Well, I do find that whenever, for example, like if you go to like a lot of Asian countries, so for like Japan, for example, is always like new technologies coming, like the society,
even though
like
they hit me
general,
as the most traditional people, like I
weird.
think of
It's
Japan,
weird.
yeah,
But they love, but like countries like China, Japan, and Korea, Thailand, even Philippines, like a lot of these countries, they love gadgets.
yeah, they're on the
It's
forefront
really
of stuff.
easy to
Yeah,
sell gadgets in these countries, like whether it be like a new phone technology or like just a little game of, like, they love these things. I don't know why they love them specifically. Maybe it just takes their mind off. Because I mean, everywhere you go, life is difficult. I mean, in places like Japan and in Korea, for example, schooling is like it's super hard, and they drill it into you, and it's just like, if you don't get these grades, you're going nowhere in life because you're not going to make it into university because you need to have. Now this is like, oh my god, like, so what are you going to do? You're gonna check out and you're gonna play some game on your phone or something. Just be like, this is making me think less about this other crap. But yeah, they're always at the forefront in like these various Asian countries, which you see some of the things that come out, you're like, well, that was pretty cool. And all of a sudden, 5 years later, it's in Canada. Oh, I have an example for you. So my smoking device that I use, and this is not a plug, but my electronic cigarette device that I use, the ICO system, I just found out that they've released a new system, and it got released like 2 years ago in Europe. And so just a general basic understanding of how this thing works You have a little pen thing, and they make these small little cigarettes for it. You put it in. On the inside, there's a blade, and the blade heats up the tobacco, and that's how you smoke it. So there is secondhand smoke, quote unquote, but it doesn't smell like regular cigarettes do because it doesn't have the additives that cigarettes has. So most of the secondhand smoke smell is from the additives, all the chemicals and stuff like that. It has a smell, but it's nothing compared to cigarette smoke, and it doesn't get stuck in your clothes and stuff, so you don't stink of cigarette smoke, right? Very simple technology. It's a blade. Now they've come out this thing with this new thing where it's a laser instead of a blade, a heating blade. It's a laser technology, and you don't have to clean it or anything like that. And it's all over Europe right now. And I'm like, sweet, we'll see it in 3 years in Canada. Like, I can't even buy the new device and use the cigarettes they sell here because the cigarettes are completely different. Like, you just can't use them. But it's like, we're one of those countries. Canada's like, yeah, we'll bring it if it works elsewhere. Like, but we're on a time delay when it comes to like new technologies and new devices and stuff like that. That was my point about that.
I'll answer, I guess, in a more cultural way. I didn't take the thing to be technology because I find technology in the West to be far superior than anything in the East. Although your points about gadgets and Japan and Korea specifically, but also the wider region. But I think, Waseem, I took it more to be culturally or almost a mindset. And I do agree, generally speaking, with this, that I found, at least in America, there definitely is a push to go backwards, right? To go back to the old school. And this is very clear in the language, make America great when? Again.
Again.
Yani, we have to go backwards. We can't move forwards. That's in their language. I'm not saying it. That's not my opinion. That's what you're telling me. Whereas in Pakistan, Imran Khan's campaign was Naya Pakistan, New Pakistan. That like for me is literally the modernity versus new school versus old school. That is, those two campaigns show that make America great when? Again, Naya Pakistan, New Pakistan. And just, I think the reason for that is in the East, the internet had a very profound effect on the individual, where now kids are growing up to see personally, they can see and they can even talk and engage with people from the West. And so now they want to be like them. Whereas before the internet, people would only hear about the fashions or see them in magazines. Now it's much more 360 if you want it to be. And so the world has caught up a lot faster. And just to go back to sports for a second, in terms of the thing, the best basketball player right now is Greek Nigerian. The best baseball player is a Japanese guy who is the best batter and the best pitcher. He can do both of them. So like Japanese gadgets, Japanese technology.
Yep, he's going down as the best two-way player. I mean, okay, people are going to say Babe Ruth was, obviously, but the things that Ohtani is doing is freaking insane. I don't understand how he's doing what he does. And the guy's he's not a big muscular guy, but this guy hits home runs. Like, he hits jacks. So you're like, how the hell did he just do that? He's tall. Okay, fine. He's tall. If you have length and height, it's easier to be able to generate strength out of that. But he just has really good mechanics in his pitching and his batting. And I'm like, man, I hate you so much because I would love to aspire to that. But so we're talking about tradition versus modernity. And so, Waseem, you said earlier that when you're walking around the East and you're walking around the West and you're seeing, like, there's a difference between wanting to go back to what it was before and what now and moving forward. Give me some concrete examples.
Like, I think we can, all right, for example, okay, the fax machine. Okay, the fax machine is a concrete example, I think, because the fax machine has become, to me, the fax machine is like a relic of an ancient time, right?
Mhm.
And any industry that still requires the use of a fax machine, to me, is like it's a traditional industry that simply does not want to modernize. And so, like Canada is an example. In the last couple of years, right, with certain government entities, you had to fax. And the last time I've seen a fax, like physically saw a fax machine, I can't remember the last time I saw physically saw a fax machine. And it makes those funny sounds, and they're there, they exist. But like imagine you have this thing, you have to think, and like they can't email you. They can't, like, you can't email, the email killed the fax, right? Like the email and the attachment must have definitely killed the fax, right?
Have you ever had to call a phone number once and someone gave you the fax machine number by accident, and you end up calling and it answers, and it's
And
all this like
it beeps, like, I mean, they're funny. They're funny. Like fax machines are funny, but it's an example where, I mean, like, I think there's this like score of government services that are electronically enabled. So and you can like look at any country in the world and see where they fall on the like global like providing services electronically, so via the internet through to the people that require them and they need to use them. And in that score, I think you'll be surprised at countries that are at the top of that list, because usually sort of smaller countries, I think Cyprus is really high on that list. And because they're usually smaller countries, so they make that shift, and they're also trying to attract like foreign business and trying to attract certain things. So they want to make it so it's easier to do business, and to get like one of the issues that I was like, how easy is it in a country to do business? And so the more electronic services that there are, the less lineups there are, the less you have to go and stand in line to go get like this, to pick up that, to do this. There's one woman that started a business, and she was African, and she wanted to set up a business where the supplies came from, I think, Nigeria, Senegal, and she wanted to, and the market was in the United States. And what she did was so she had to set up a business in the US, and she had to set up a business in Senegal in order to do this. To set up the business in the US, it took her, I think, a total of like 2 days. Like just to get everything done, it took her 2 days. To set up the business in Senegal, which was like a manufacturing business for export, it took her 2 years. And by the time they had completed the requirements of the first of the 2 years, the requirements all changed. So like how is her company, how is Senegalese companies expected to compete internationally if it takes 2 years to just set up the business, right? And two years in business terms is like what forget it, like forget about it. Don't waste your time, don't bother. And so that stark difference in terms of services available in order to do that is a very big measure. Like, I mean, even people will move to countries where it's just easier to deal with the government, to deal with like the services required, where you don't have to go find a fax machine, right? And you have to go find a piece of, like, even a printer. Like, lots of people don't live with printers because they don't need why would they need to print anything?
I'll give a smaller example. This was like very good, but like over here in Karachi in Pakistan, there's a restaurant right next to my place. They take orders over WhatsApp. You literally just WhatsApp them, hey, want this, want this, want this. The guy will send you a picture of the receipt. You send him your address, and he says, okay. That's it. That's my order. That I don't find anywhere. Like, how is that simple thing not used in US, Canada businesses?
Because they have Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes and DoorDash. They use it for that.
No, but listen,
that makes no sense.
There's a
right?
difference.
You're paying
Uber,
them.
Uber gets a cut. Uber Eats gets a cut.
No,
This
I know,
found a way.
because-
He's like, I'm not paying them 3%, 5%, 10%, nothing.
Yeah.
Now the thing is, Uber Eats brings the delivery driver, but like you should be able to afford one delivery driver and take like 2 orders on your WhatsApp service pays for the delivery driver. Like there is, and again, you're paying Grubhub and Uber Eats. And if I order from a restaurant through one of these services, I don't end up blaming the service. I use the service again for a different restaurant. I blame the restaurant, even though most of the time it's the service that's really messed up. And
Yeah.
they're the ones who are taking money for nothing. And they're
Yeah,
the
I
ones
know.
who are adding convenience fees and handling fees.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is just one of those forward-looking things that, hey, it's literally 4 messages on WhatsApp for free to everybody, and you send the guy over. That's it. This has not been done by any. In fact, WhatsApp in general is not used by Americans at all, weirdly.
Mm-mm.
Even though Facebook owns it, very few Americans have WhatsApp on their phone.
Yeah.
I guess the other way that I've seen, at least here in Vancouver, I've seen restaurants knock out the middleman, but they're still available on Uber Eats and Skip the Dish and stuff like that. They just have their ordering online system on their website, but it's like just strictly through their website. So you can order online for pickup if you want to go and pick it up and not have to, and they don't have to deal with the fees because a lot of restaurants don't want to use those services because they charge high fees. And on top of that, when you look at the prices on like Uber Eats, for example, it ends up being $3 or $4 more on the Uber service than when you look at the actual menu at the actual restaurant. So it's like now I'm paying an inflated fee just because of it's stupid.
Yo, man, I always call the restaurant. I always call them, like, cause like it's always cheaper. It's like there's always like 10% off, and they'll do and they'll do
That's
it.
true.
Like, they'll fully do it, right? Like I'm always calling the restaurant. I'm definitely avoiding
10% off for pickup or something like that.
Yeah, 10% for pickoff. Cash. Cash is also like you get like another 5% off if you pay cash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you
Because there's no money trail if you don't pay electronically.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in this food and beverage industry, the service industry, we didn't really see any modernization in the offers or anything during COVID times. Like the apps themselves, the technology existed in 2015. Grubhub was around from at least 2013, 2015. So they stuck to a very traditional model. And in fact, even in terms of grocery stores, we were told it's wartime era, but we didn't do any modernization in terms of alleviating the economic burden on me. So I'm still paying full price to the grocery, a private business, during a wartime thing. Why can't we have some flexibility? Why do we have to be OGs in this respect? Why can't we be a little bit modern and at least your 10 staple diet products, water and sugar and flour, should at least be put on at a cost basis, and like don't take profit on those. And that happens anyways with their pricing models. With Walmart, for example, they'll take losses on certain products because they'll make higher margin on other products. So they do this anyways. Why couldn't we have this modernization when we needed it?
For obviously cynical reasons, man. These guys, like, because they don't really care, man. And like, I don't like, I wonder how many, actually, you know what? Plenty of people still are like, was it like, are in the illusion, right? Like, are in the illusion that, like, there's I mean, I try not to get too cynical. But it's really hard not to.
But then he talks to me. And Rashed.
Yeah. We're going to bring you right down, boy. How much time do you have today?
No. I mean, because a lot of things happen. I mean, even in this tradition versus modern thing, right? Like, and the older I get, the more I like naturally, I feel like I give more to tradition. So like, I give more weight to tradition. The older I get, the more modernism throws me off. Right. So in the beginning, I'm all for like, let's do things differently. Let's reimagine. All that stuff. And then as I get older, and especially as I start having kids, I start to go like, there's room for tradition. There are things that I want, like
It's always kids. It's always kids that makes people think about, oh man, I was a dickhead when I was younger. I don't want my kids to do the same stupid things that I did. Oh, now I'm going to become more religious because I'm afraid I'm a bad example on my children, whatever.
Well, kids will do that to you. Yes, they will.
Oh, absolutely.
Force you to question your assumptions.
Very close to me is going through this exact same battle right now. And okay, so here this is actually a good segue into this thing, because if we want to bring it to like actual people now, a lot of us who are born and raised in a place like Canada, for example, you're always trying to, so you can go two ways. You can either hold on to these traditional values that your parents have tried to raise you with, and maintain those traditional values from the old country, or you rebel and you don't give a flying beeswax about it. And it almost seems like at some point people still come back to the traditional values. So we used to always make fun of people, or not make fun, but we would always make note that as people got older, we would notice that they'd be thinking about religion again more than they ever did. Because now they're afraid of what's going to happen to them in the afterlife. What happens when I die? And all this kind of
not to be morbid, right? You just get closer to death the older you get.
Exactly, but the thing
You're
is,
getting one
that,
step closer to death.
So what do I do now? Direction. It's like, I need to like make good. I need to make peace with all the stupid things that I did and all that kind of stuff. But it's what kills me is that, so then I see these people go through this type of thing, and the problem is from day one you're stuck, because even as you want to start learning about things that you just ignored in the past, you still don't know where to get the right answers from. You scour the internet about things that are Islamic related, about different topics. Shirk, for example, is a good example. So people talk about shirk, make in the biggest one obviously is making partners with God and all that, and that's the biggest one, right? So now people are freaking out. People like in my position, for example, freaking out, be like, oh, but what if I do this? What if I celebrate Christmas? And what if I that's one of the biggest examples, because it's like, well, am I committing shirk by celebrating Christmas? And I'm like, nah, man, you're not. It's about the intention. People forget about the whole intention part of things, where it's like your intention, from what we're told Islamically, your intention kind of
the trump card, bro.
It's
the
always about
wild
intention.
card.
What's your niyyah? Like what's going on here? Like,
what do you mean to do?
are you celebrating Jesus as the Son of God, or are you not doing it? If you're just doing it just because it's a nice holiday and you want to bring the family together, well, that's a really good value to have. That's a good traditionalist value to have. Yeah, man,
but the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Probably. No? Yes?
Yes.
No.
Yeah. That's the term, man. Like I think, okay. I mean, I share because I hear a lot of people struggle with this type of stuff, right? It's like, well, who do I look to for the right answers? And I'm looking for the right answers, and I feel a lot of that, and I'm like a lot of like sort of hope, and where I found, and I was like that as well. But where a lot of peace came to me was that, like, nobody's got the right answers. No, like it doesn't. I don't I really couldn't care less how much you've read, and like what you've read and how much of it you read. Like we can have a conversation. Yes, I'm for people having conversations, but it's mainly to illuminate the answer that you already know inside your heart. So like the real source of your your real compass is you, and you got to trust yourself. You read I believe that everybody knows, everyone knows the truth inside their hearts. They do. I really like I do, you do, everyone does. And we add these layers, like, okay, maybe someone else knows something I don't know. And like, you end up looking for something that's with you the entire time. And like, I think that's the game. That's the trick. The trick is to think that it's outside, but you have everything you need. You have everything you need to figure this out. You do.
See, my thing here, my issues with a lot of these topics that could be discussed, Islamically speaking, there's a lot of gray area. There are things that are like black and white, that there's no debate within Islam. But there's a lot of things that are just gray, because you try and scour the internet for answers, and then really at this point you see one person say this thing and you see another article saying this, and like the complete opposite of what the other one said. And it's just like, well, now I tell people, you have to look at their bias. You have to understand what their background is. Like, what was their training, for example? Did they have any religious training, like theological training, let's say, for example? And that and what ends up happening nowadays, people just kind of cling to the status quo opinion, which in my mind is influenced by bad people and bad values and bad morals and poor interpretations of text. So that makes you more confused. So still, how do you rectify that?
Well,
you can go to your imam to the mosque.
Yeah, but
you
you'll just keep going. Like
question.
you're gonna keep going until somebody tells you an answer that satisfies you. And the question and like it's like you'll find someone that says yay, and you'll find someone that says nay. Right? Like you'll find both. But what do you want said, yay or nay? Right? Like I think there's a lot more happening inside of you when you're looking for an answer than there is like.
But does that make it right then?
Outside.
Does that answer that you get that ends up satisfying your desire for the answer that you're looking for to justify it for yourself, is that even the right answer in the end? That's the problem.
Allahu A'lam, man. That's why there's an Allahu A'lam at the end of all this stuff, right? Like
exactly.
That's why like you don't.
I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah. Like there's it's just really confusing for so many people. I understand why so many people, they just throw their arms up in the air and say, screw it, I'm done with this crap. Because I don't know, apart from if someone is listening and they're stuck in this type of turmoil, the only advice I can give them is walk, don't run. If you're trying to come to terms with so many different aspects of whatever, let's just say that you felt you may have done wrong in the past, and now you're trying to find answers. If you're running in that situation, you're just muddling all these things into one, and you can't even analyze any type of answer that you're getting. So there's two things. There's either knowing a lot of things and understanding things. Knowing a lot of verses, let's just say, for example, is great. That's wonderful. You can memorize. Good for you. But do you really understand what the context is? Do you really understand what the message really is? Because you need to understand the background context of a lot of these things that we would talk about. That I don't know if you want to bring up any specific topics about that, but there's so many things within Islam, for example, that so many people like us struggle with from day one and just don't know what to do with it.
Number one, I am. Are you guys still here?
Yeah.
Because my computer is blacked out. I am the opposite of Waseem. I'm totally down for modernization. I am not down with the old school. Khalas, we've done it. We've been there. Whatever.
Are you retiring your OG hat?
Khalas, I'm done with this OG, and I was done with it from college because. The college I went to was all about their traditions, and you know what? I'm actually kind of not down with them. They're very exclusive, and they don't really, again, they're not progressive, in my opinion. But having said that, Waseem's answer is kind of right, though. It is the third culture answer, where what if no one has the answer and everyone has the answer? And then Rashid's thing kicks in, where you need to analyze what is good for you and bad for you. So you may look at somebody and say, this is a good quality of theirs, and I should copy that, mimic that, like put that into my style. And you may look at somebody, the same person, and say, but they have this bad quality about them, and I want to avoid this. So within that, like everyone has the answer and no one has the answer. And ultimately you have to decide your answer because it's based on your perspective, your truth, you.
Well, and you.
But it's not always based on you, is it?
But no, this is the thing is where the mistake, you, what do you mean when you say you? So generally if you're saying you to me, okay, if you're saying you to me, I'm not just me. I'm me, I'm my family, I'm my community. Like I make the best decision for everybody. Like, because like I am not just I, the illusion of I, right? Like I'm not just me, I'm everybody. And so when I think through a problem and I'm trying to find the truth in that, I'm thinking about myself, and I'm thinking about like myself and the extension, like me in relation to absolutely everybody else and everybody around me. And so that's where, because if it's just you, that's falling.
See, the thing is, for me, like what you're saying is similar to what I would like to say, in the sense that it's not only about you, because if we're going to talk about certain countries in the world where they have the religious scholars making outlandish rules about how you should be living your life within the borders of that country, now you're in repressive societies. And we're seeing an example of this starting to come to a head in Iran, for example. Oh, we lost MJ.
Back in business,
Okay.
baby.
Is he back?
Yeah, back in business.
Oh, his audio's connecting. You back?
Just keep going.
Okay. So what I was saying, MJ, when we lost you briefly there, is that a lot of these repressive policies are starting to come ahead in places like Iran, for example, where I don't know what's going to happen there. Like at first I thought, this is going to get stopped or whatever. I'm like, I don't know, this might go further than I expected. But so yes, you can try and look for answers for you, and all that kind of stuff. But the problem comes into play when you're living in societies where it's not you, it's Islam, it's religious scholars deciding for everyone else what should be your life and what values you should have. And if you don't agree with that, well, now you're in danger if you want to voice your displeasure towards that kind of stuff, right?
Yes, but I think you guys took it way, or like the environment I was talking about was not that environment. Like those, like an Iranian girl is not listening to our podcast, so I wasn't thinking on the North Korean individual at all. I was thinking in terms of open societies, because you've gone to a very extreme case, an extreme environment. If the problem's not working in an open environment, it's not going to work in a controlled environment, right? Like if you have money, education, and no excuses, and you're still making the wrong decisions, then I don't know what these people, like what chance these people have who have none of those three things, and possibly not even healthcare.
Right.
That's why I think I was just referring to, like, first let's fix like the educated people, right? Like, and just to go to your point about that knowledge versus understanding thing, we have a society now, just generally speaking, this is the modern traditional students, traditional university students were people who it was a vocation, academic was a vocation to them. There was a calling to them. With somewhere in the middle, university just became mandatory for everybody of a certain class that you have to do university. So now we have universities where they're just paper mills, they're just printing out. You're not really going there to train your mind to think, as Einstein's written in this quote. You're just going to get a degree. That degree then gives you the credibility to say, people will say, looking at that degree, oh, look how smart they are. But like having sat in those classes, no, most of these students are just transactional students. They're just here to give you money and you give them grades, and that's how it's
Oh,
working.
absolutely. Like in Canada, universities love the international student money. Huge amount of what they generate in terms of revenue is from international students.
The University of Toronto loves low grades as well, giving out low grades while taking out big checks.
Yep.
There's something, a chemistry professor was like fired or something because it was too hard.
Really?
It was too hard, yeah. But man, you know what though? I'm actually very careful with these types of stories. I'm very
failed
careful.
that course twice. Chem 138. I failed that course twice.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I think
this is how I keep it real, bro.
But
this
I'm
is
careful. I'm careful with any media story that depicts like the younger generation as like lazy or stupid. Like I'm just very skeptical about any of that because it's so easy. It's so easy to be like, back in my day, we used to walk on glass barefoot to school. Like, like, and if it wasn't enough grass, we broke more. Like when somebody cleaned up the glass, we put it back. And like, no, we gotta walk barefoot. And so I'm very skeptical of any news story that tries to show like usually both ways actually, also to show them as the the greatest and be all end all of of everything, because I think there, especially with I think Western media, there's a lot of sacrificing of youth in order to push a story, right? Like they'll be like, look at them, how they're shaming us, and that's a whole other ideology that's going on right now, that especially when it comes to things about the environment. It's like the young people yell and shame the old people for fossil fuels and their homes and their stuff, and they're angry, and then they shame them on their iPhones. The total yeah, boo tweet. Right,
they type their rebuttal all in cap letters, and it's like, why are you yelling at me?
Yeah, it's a mess. I think it's so I'm in general, I'm quite skeptical of any news story that is either trying to portray that's usually trying to portray the youth in any type of thing, either as being the great shamers, but then even in saying that story, I was saying as the stupid, the stupid, they're kids, they're dumb, what do they know, right? That type of idea. And I'm going to double down on my original assertion that the truth, and kids, they know the truth, they have it. And then when we color them with culture, and we color them with all the stuff around them, and because obviously we have this understanding that they're empty vessels that we are depositing our information in, so that they could become full members of society. And but I don't think that they are empty vessels. And I think no one is an empty vessel. I think we're taught to be to be shallow, but I think in real life we're all actually quite deep, and we have those things there. You just got to look for them. You just got to stop.
Well, you don't think some people are just predisposed to being shallow?
No, I don't. I think things can happen, but I don't think you are predisposed. I actually I know this is crazy, but I believe that no, you're not predisposed to being shallow. I think you're encouraged to be shallow. You are kind of you're made to be shallow, because once you get too deep, it's kind of hard.
Waseem works with in marketing, and so he's taken a very anti-marketer approach to it, and it's a fair approach. Because the fact is that marketing, that entire industry is, they don't highlight, a good marketer highlights the features, a great marketer exploits your insecurities, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of the great marketers in history have exploited these very sort of insecurities, weaknesses, however you want to define them, issues, whatever they are. That's how most of the market,
that's how it works. That's how it works. I gotta find a problem, and if there isn't a problem, I gotta create one.
and then not just create it though, drill it into the person that you are this problem, and we have the solution.
And I'm selling you the solution right here, baby. I got the solution right here.
Person should be saying you. It is actually the company saying you, and that's the problem Waseem is referring to. All the companies are telling us what to do, what to feel, how to do it, how to dress it, how to do. At some point, you need to just be your own person and be okay.
And more and more companies now. I feel like this is we're reaching ahead when it comes to this, because more and more companies feel that it's okay to do that, to tell me what I how to be virtuous. And the last thing a company should ever tell me, companies these big ass Rogers and the Nikes and all of these and Apple and Facebook are telling us what it's Twitter Twitter like just like banned a dude that had like a doctor that had like 500 million like things because he was talking about he was sharing that the Florida, okay, here's some crazy. So the Florida Governor General,
It's always Florida. It's always Florida.
But the Florida's like Surgeon General, so like whoever's in charge of medicine in Florida, like in healthcare and whatever in Florida, like recommended that people under 40 shouldn't, like we're not, this episode's not gonna be able to go up because I'm gonna say this, but recommended. This is like government official, right? Like this is not me. I'm not saying this. But if they said that if you're under 40 and you're a male, you shouldn't get like boosted or something like that. Okay, go look it up yourself. And how much weight do you want to give the Florida Surgeon General? That's up to you. That's not me. But he says something like that, and so then I think they like blocked his tweet or something, and because it was misinformation. But then you're like, wait, but that's that's literally the government. That is the government that's saying that. And so what gives Twitter the right to decide? And Twitter like had opened this box for itself because now it's like the controller of what is like allowed to be said and not to be said, and like there's no end to that because you can't really do that, right? Because you can't like nuance, right? You can't do that. so that when these big companies come and tell me what I should accept and behave like in my life, like there isn't a larger crock of shit that I have to swallow. there isn't, because shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Like that's literally what I want to say. Shut the fuck up. Please. You're not even a person. Like legally, we kind of treat you like a person, and that wasn't even up to me. But you're not a person, so you can't tell me how people should behave. Because if you were a person, you'd be a psychopath.
But how many times have you done something because you heard just do it? Let's get real.
Just because it says.
Because it says it. It feeds into your psyche of like, you know what, I should give it a go.
Yeah, and like
give it a good try.
Even the Patagonia business from a few weeks ago, like again, I'm gonna go on my crazy, but the Patagonia business from a few weeks ago was crazy because it's a way, like literally like everyone in the world was like look at this, like people with I feel like no business sense whatsoever, don't understand how it works, are like, look at Patagonia. He's like now converted himself to all profits are going to go to saving the environment and all that type of business. And then literally,
what about
I have
his
two
company's
questions.
Carbon footprint?
Yeah, I go, number one, what do you mean by saving the environment? Number two, bullshit, right? Like you're putting, they put it into these, like, it's a way to protect yourself from getting taxed. Right, and I thought the government was supposed to be doing stuff about it like that. That's why
I don't know.
So like now you're going to have a lower
you're...
tax burden. Yes, this is how they work. This is exactly. If anyone ever, like, you literally should react in this manner. If someone says, "I'm starting a philanthropic, like a rich company is like, I'm doing something for philanthropy," immediately red flag. Immediately, red flag. Wait. How do you benefit? Like, how are you going to benefit from this? Oh, okay. So now you've like made it so that you don't have to pay any more taxes for the next like little while because now it's like trapped in a trust fund. Okay. All right. Cool. And then you get all those kudos. Oh, that even works. That's how you also benefit off of that, because now everybody's going to go buy Patagonia because they're going to think Patagonia is like doing stuff for the environment. And so every year they're going to buy a new sweater, right?
They're the good guys. We can root for the good guys.
More consumerism, more like buy it, like more. It's crazy. And you'll see it's happen. And I always feel like that's it. People are awake to this. Like that's it. People are aware of this. And then I'm just surprised by the amount of like bullshit I gotta swallow.
This revolution we lived through. I think it was a University of Toronto woman. She went to Trent, I think. She wrote that book, No Logo. And that was supposed to be the beginning of the end, right? No Logo was the like, like we've been Fight Club, No Logo, all of the stuff stored in the Nike sweatshops. This was like 98 to 2004, around that like 6-year time period.
Was that Naomi Klein?
Naomi Klein, that's the one. Yeah, No Logo. Yeah. That was that era of like, corporations are over with, but instead they just got bigger and badder and meaner and yeah.
Yeah.
What's that? There's that other book that's been popular recently. The Subtle Art of How Not to Give a Fuck or something like that.
Yeah.
And I haven't read it, but I've seen that was a super popular book for a long time. So I really don't know anything about it, but I'm going to assume it's about like really what are we talking about here? We're talking when it comes to this kind of stuff about, screw the corporations and what their messages. It's really taking ownership for yourself and taking ownership for your decisions, taking ownership for your personal values and morals and all that kind of stuff, right? But even still, like the basis point for any moral and value for any individual still comes from upbringing. So it goes back to, did you have a traditional upbringing or more modern upbringing? So for example, what's a good example? In a Muslim household, for example, yeah, there's some alcohol around at the family parties, big deal. Other families won't have that because like, nope, can't do it, haram. I always found the ones that would be willing to have the alcohol around to be cool. These people are cool. They don't, they're breaking down the status quo. But yeah, people, there's an element where at some point, what you're saying, Waseem, I agree with in the sense of like, fuck you. Like, don't tell me what to do. Don't
Man,
tell me how to.
Yeah. It's like when they go win their Oscars. And then they just like give people a moral lesson, like they use it as a chance for a khutbah, right?
Yeah.
Like, right, like to give it to give a sermon, like that fuck off, man. Like you're in no position. You're in no position. like fuck off.
Take your gold statue.
Yeah.
Take your $1 million check and enjoy your
And
life.
go away and say alhamdulillah and move on. Like go. And you're just in no position to give me like moral lessons. Like
then you read about DiCaprio is saying we need to do everything for climate change, and then he's flying 15,000 miles in 2 weeks. And you're like, oh,
no, those are my favorite. My favorite things is when they have like the climate summits. The climate summits are the funniest things in the planet. Like the climate, like because they'll be the richest motherfuckers. They're so rich. Everybody's so rich, and so they all got to fly their own plane. Like they don't even like plane pool. They each got to fly their own damn plane, right? And with all of that shit, and they land, and for the 2 days, and then it's crazy how virtuous they all feel and spread and yell at stupid and call and this is probably what gets me, the people of the earth the problem, like literally the people that feed them, that make it so that they can actually fly that plane, the people that work at the airports and the people that fix the thing, and all the people that make it so that their lives can be like this. They blame them, and they go and they sit there and they think they're great. And every year they do this. Every fucking year.
But really, how are they going to plane pool? They're coming from all the different parts of the world. They're going to have to meet somewhere.
Yeah. Of course.
Right? It's not like they're all coming from the burbs.
How else are they going to get there, right? What are they going to do? Swim? Not in these oceans.
Oh, yeah, right.
That come out with a third eye on their forehead.
Like Lake Ontario.
Yeah.
The running joke growing up in Toronto, going to Lake Ontario, you're going to come out with a third eye and a fifth leg.
Yo. So on that positive note, guys, have a great week. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Even be kind to one another.
I don't know what we accomplished in this episode, but I hope it was entertaining to you people.
If you're struggling with a problem, guys, and you need to look outside yourself, I'm telling you, man, you guys got the answer. People might disagree.